This is Piper the Salem and Sailor the Piperman the Smoking. I just got on this morning because I've been thinking a lot about J.R. Tokien. I was entering into a conversation with some gentlemen online. Some couldn't get into the book and he didn't know why. So I kind of reminded him, oftentimes a writer writes, an author writes a book in the context of his time, what he sees, what he's experienced. And many times these author futurists, based on the observation of what they see during their time, they can also see certain things happening in the future. Like Alvin Tolfer, B.F. Skinner, who dealt in behavior modification, George Orwell, J.R. Tokien, and also the Writer of Dooms. What I mean is, you take J.R. Tolkien, when he grew up, he was born in the late 1800s and died in 1973. He lived through World War One, World War Two, two terrible wars, horrific. For anybody living in London or living in England in World War Two and watching London get bombed, how the Nazis came and sent those V rockets. And there's a reality. It was a reality check for them that the Nazis, this empire, this evil empire, could overrun, subjugate England like it did much of Europe. And we saw what the Nazis did, exterminated people, whether it was in Poland, Czechoslovakia, imprisoned them, killed over 6 million Jews. Doesn't it sound familiar in his novels how evil rose up, wanted to rise up, and also showed through whoever held the ring the power? It was like a fulcrum. Whoever held that ring wasn't thinking good thoughts. Not even Gandalf. You had to have a pure heart to be the ring bearer. That fellowship to me symbolized, maybe subconsciously, the Allies' powers fighting the Axis powers of the forces that we saw being played out between good and evil. Remember, Tolkien was living in World War II. Hitler was very real, had people with him. He had his minions. They wanted to take over the world. They caused destruction. They wanted to take over Middle Earth, right? Europe. And so Tolkien wrote, I don't know if he was conscious of what he was writing, but he wrote about good, basically good over evil, and how evil needed to triumph, and for good to triumph, men had to come together to fight evil. That's what happened in World War II, basically. And George Orwell saw in the future about dictatorship, being controlled, Big Brother controlling us, taking away our liberties, our freedoms, our way of thinking. And us, pipe smokers, we want to hold to certain freedoms. Freedom of expression, freedom to smoke our pipes. And it's something to hold on to. We think of peace, we think of reflection. It's what makes us human. Pipe smoking makes us human. We don't want to let go of the bygone eras. We don't want to let go of good things, of wonderful things. I, for one, don't want to adapt to change. Not to what's going on around me, all the lawlessness, all the craziness that we're seeing. I'm not with it. I can't be part of that. And so a lot of these authors wrote about behavior modification, and we're seeing technology and the media controlling the minds, influencing, the pictures, the violent pictures that I only noticed just before war takes place that Hollywood puts out dozens and dozens of war pictures to trigger something in our subconscious to wanting to go to war. Rambo. Pictures of Rambo came out, and then we ended up going to war. Other pictures came out, and we ended up, after 9/11, going to war. So there's a conditioning that goes on. There's a driving force, there's an evil driving force that will manipulate minds, much like the Ring manipulated the minds of, in Fellowship the Ring. You saw how the dragon in the Hobbit was a destroyer, wanted gold, wanted riches, wanted to possess everything. It was evil. Who needed to be fought and brought down. So, technology is good. But for me, I can't keep up with it. Really, I just cannot keep up with all the technology. I can keep up with all the news. There's so much news. There's so much music. There's so much of everything. It's just overwhelming to the mind. And so when I smoke pipe, it slows down. It brings me to a time, a place of peace. Stress free. When I watch TV, I'm stressed. I see everything that's going on. I'm like, my God, what's going on? When you hear things, a mother taking an infant and sticking the child in a microwave, it's just pure evil. What is going on in the minds of people? Going into school, shooting up other kids, and the parents okay with that. Okay with the kids' violence. There's something wrong, and I know what it is. It's evil. But these authors that have wrote these futurist books, touch on overpopulation, touch on human migration, touch on ecology, touch on the environment. And we need to read these books. Right now, I was like, I'm just maintaining my lifestyle. I've gone on YouTube to share my thoughts because people don't do critical thinking anymore. They put you in a box. They'll say, "Well, Taylor Piperman is like this. He's always jolly. He's always happy. He's just a pipe smoker." And we don't get to know the human behind the pipe smoker. What makes that person run? You know, you don't we don't understand. We see a flaw in a person, but we don't understand the intellect of a person. So you got. I think pipe smokers are some of the greatest critical thinkers, and oftentimes we do not share those thoughts, good or bad. For the most part, we do good. We help one another. I've seen how we pray for one another, how we wish well for one another, and that's from a bygone era. You know, it's like smoking the peace pipe, like the Indians were trying to, among them, smoke. There was war and they were fighting among Indians themselves, but it's a way to make a covenant of peace. And that is void now. I mean, some of the things that I'm hearing politicians say, and they're fighting for control. We're trying to control what we listen to, what we hear. He who controls the mob controls everything, right? So I think that was the message J.R. was trying to bring. Whether he knew or not, that's a message I got. Good over evil has to triumph. This is Sailor the Piper Man, Piper the Sailor Man, with my thoughts on J.R. Tokien.